Hello and warm welcome to SAP on Azure YouTube channel. Today is June 6th, and today with Robert and Holger, we're here to talk anything and everything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hi. So backup is a super important functionality in one SAP system. I remember one issue when I was doing support in the past. There was a really huge escalation. There was a database corruption, and the customer did not have a backup, and meaning which would lead to loss of data. So therefore, backup is super important. Now in the cloud world, I'm always impressed how many of those functionality and services features becoming actually a cloud services where you do not need to install do not need to get a server, install an operating system, install a backup software, operate it, patch it. You use it as a cloud service, and this is actually what the Azure Backup is. Many customers are already using an Azure Backup, and we will hear a lot about the Azure Backup, especially for the SAP in the context of database like HANA, SQL Server, but also an NEDB as an SAP Sybase. We will talk about a lot about how to optimize the cost, security, and the roadmap. And today we have two guests. It's Pradeep. I'm more than happy to welcome Pradeep and Tunde, who are program manager in the Microsoft, who are working on these topics. So before we start, can you please introduce yourself? Maybe we start, Pradeep, with you. You know who you are, what you are doing. It's
great. Yeah. Hey, Goran. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Good to be here. So my name is Pradeep Saran. I'm the product manager managing SAP workloads on Azure Backup. Predominantly, I take care of HANA ASE workloads on Azure Backup. So I'm based out of Bangalore, been with Microsoft for the last 3 years. Great time here.
Yeah. Tunde?
Yeah, Goran, it's great to be on this podcast show. My name is Tunde Azeez, and I'm the product manager within the SAP engineering on SAP on Azure team. And I'm responsible for, all the things related to business continuity and DR. Predominantly, we're talking about backup, like Pradeep mentioned, DR services, and DR disaster recovery, and any form of data protection. And specifically in this case, we're talking about customizing some of these services like backup that we have for our SAP solutions running on Azure.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, maybe some customers do not know much about the Azure Backup. What does it mean? So maybe, Pradeep, can you just start, let's say, with some overview what the Azure Backup is and what is actually doing and how it's working? You're on mute, Pradeep.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So a quick overview about Azure Backup. So Azure Backup is a simple, secure, scalable, cost-effective way to protect your workloads. So we make sure that the experience is seamless in terms when customer tries to back up a workload, they don't differentiate. We don't differentiate much in terms of how we protect the workloads, right? It's pretty seamless. And this single slide basically talks through what are the different capabilities that we have with Azure Backup. So if you see ground up, we support vast amount of workloads, right from on-prem to your VM backups to AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, right? So today, the point of discussion is mostly related to SAP workloads. So which means we support SQL, we support HANA, and we recently brought in a private preview of ASE Backup as well. So these are some of the interesting things that we are doing with Azure Backup. And in terms of scalability and resiliency, so we have a concept called Recovery Services Vault, which is completely isolated, which is air-gapped vault where we store the recovery points when we take the backup. And you have multiple options there. So where the customer gets to choose what is the type of resiliency they want, like LRS, ZRS, or RAGRS. And we also provide multiple capabilities, how they want to take the backup. If they want to use the snapshot mechanism, or if they want to use the streaming way of backing up. And the most important part is we have built-in security as well. A lot of security capabilities that we support, like immutability, encryption, soft delete, multiple capabilities that we provide. And that is basically a platform where every workload basically supports all these capabilities that I mentioned. Now coming to manageability or observability, right? So we have something called as ABCC, which is Azure Business Continuity Center, where you can manage all your workloads and recovery points from one single management plane. And you can generate reports, alerts, and whole lot of capabilities out there. So in a nutshell, it's pretty simple, secure way to manage your workloads using Azure Backup.
And also, it's not just the database. I mean, I mentioned the database, but here on the slide you have on the bottom also it's the VM, Azure VM as well. It's, for example, Azure Files, and these are all the services, pieces of infrastructure which are used in context of one SAP system and which are important to backup as well,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
absolutely. So today, when customer does a restore during a disaster or a ransomware attack, so we provide capabilities to restore the VM. On top of that, they can restore the HANA database as well. So that way they get end-to-end, so that they don't waste time, because time is really precious during these critical times. So we provide those capabilities, and the workflow is pretty simple, so that any new person coming on board, they don't differentiate or they don't see too much difference when they are backing up or restoring workloads, different workloads.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah. All right.
So probably I'll also talk through some of the interesting things
Mhm.
that we are doing for HANA Backup. Ours is a Backint certified solution. So we have a certification with SAP. So which means we have a Backint certification where we stream the backup directly to Recovery Services Vault. So some of the additional capabilities that we get in terms of performance, these are added advantages that we get with Backint certification. And majority of customers prefer using Backint way to manage or to take backup of their workloads of their HANA database.
And this is a certified solution from
Absolutely.
the SAP as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I will also like to talk about a basic architecture of what actually we are doing with HANA Backup. So if you look at this, we have an extension that we will install on your VM, on customer's VM. So this is just to reiterate that we don't install anything at the HANA database level. So there is no impact. So we directly install an extension at the VM level. And then that extension will talk to Backint channel, which is via the HANA database. And that's where we take the backups and then directly stream to Recovery Services Vault. And one more goodness that you get with the solution is log backups. So we also stream the log backups using Backint to the Recovery Services Vault, which means you get point-in-time recovery. So you can restore back in time to a certain minute and certain few minutes as well. That is the goodness of the point-in-time recovery or the log backups, which we stream directly to Recovery Services Vault. So we have RPO of 15 minutes, and that gives you capability of point-in-time restore. We provide additional capabilities. Customer can do short-term retention or long-term retention where they can store it for months together, months or years together. We also have a capability to do archival storage. In case if you want to do it for a very long period of time, you can configure saying, okay, after 3 months, move these recovery points to archival storage, which means your cost directly reduces a lot. And there could be a compliance reason or for auditing purpose where you might have to save these recovery points for a longer period of time. So you can use archival support on Azure Backup as well. So this is the high level architecture of what we are doing for HANA. And if you,
the thing is also for customer, they just go to the portal and enable it. There is no need to install it something directly on the operating system as well. It's just out of the box functionality, just enable it and that's it, right? So onboarding is super simple.
Very, very simple. Yeah. I'll give a demo as well at the end of the new solution or new workload that we brought in, ASE Backup. So I'll give a quick walkthrough of what exactly happens, and it's super simple to onboard your VMs to Azure Backup, and you can schedule your backup policy, how often you want to backup, and then enable protection. That's about it. Automatically, we take care of end-to-end capabilities. We take backup, and then we safeguard your backup in the recovery services vault. We protect those workloads to make sure there is no, if in case of ransomware attack, we provide additional security capabilities on top of that. So it's completely secure, end-to-end, it's taken care of.
And even, Gaurav, you mentioned about the easy onboarding that Pradeep also mentioned. One of the things, capability that we've also done is integrated the backup solution into our Azure Center for SAP, which we've come to talk about on this podcast. And the Azure Center for SAP Solution for Innovius essentially is our platform that allows you to deploy and manage your SAP system on Azure. It basically is a one-stop shop that basically allows you to be able to manage your system. And one of the things you can do there is basically Azure Backup is now integrated into the ACSS such that not only are you able to onboard or enable your backup quickly, we actually allow you to do it in the context of your SAP system.
Right.
So each one of your SAP system, you're able at the click of a button to be able to say deploy or enable backup for this system, and it will go ahead and enable backup not only for your application server, but also for your database and your ACS servers. And you're also able to view those backups, jobs, instances. In one instance, you're able to look at it and you're able to go deep to check additional details about it. So I think talking about onboarding, we've got even taken it a step further to bring it in the context of your SAP system or running as a top level on Azure.
Yeah, usually I always hear during my IT career, one pane of glass, so to say, as always. It's highly appreciated always, right?
Great. So we can also talk about some of the workloads. So we saw some overview and then we saw the architecture. So in terms of workload support, so today we support HANA, we support SQL, and we recently introduced support for SAP ASE Sybase as well. So most commonly used workloads, pretty much we support on Azure Backup. So if you see, there's a quick comparison between what are the different capabilities that we support with SAP HANA and SQL, pretty much all the latest and greatest DB versions and operating system versions. With HANA, we support HSR in case if you have enabled HA, which predominantly most of the production systems are enabled with HSR HANA system replication. We have intelligence to identify during failure and then automatically backup, which means customer does not have to worry about if the backups are happening after failover and fallback. We automatically take care of that completely. And same with SQL Server as well. On SQL, we support always on AG, always on availability group for HA. So we have the intelligence there as well. And in terms of performance, we have improved a lot. So we support both standard single channel performance, single channel throughput, and multi-channel, which means by default, single channel is used where we provide the pipe between your VM to recovery services vault, right? As I said earlier, we take the backup, we stream the backup directly to recovery services vault. This is the streaming way of backing up your databases. And by default, it can go up to 420 Mbps. So we also recently introduced support for multi-streaming backup. So which means we will use multiple channels to stream the backup. So we can go up to say 1.5 Gbps. Once you enable multi-streaming backup, you can go up to 1.5 Gbps. So this is the goodness about in terms of performance. So if customers are having large databases, they can also opt for snapshot-based backup. We support snapshot-based backup as well. So let's say you have a very large database, about 10 TB or 20, 30 terabytes of HANA database. You can also use snapshot-based backup, which means we take a snapshot of your storage of your disk, and then we store it in operational tier on the customer storage account, and you can do an instant restore as well. And these are some of the capabilities that we have with HANA and SQL. SQL, we are currently working on bringing in snapshot capability. Again, one more interesting point that I would like to talk about here is we have capability to understand if there is any failure and take a remedial action. So if you look at other solutions, the differentiator or the value prop that we have is if you take a backup and at the same time you do database backup and log backup. If there is any log chain failure, we have a way to identify if there is a log chain failure, and then we automatically understand that we take a remedial full. So what really happens is, in case if you don't identify that, tomorrow when you try, if there is a disaster or a ransomware attack that happens when you're trying to restore it, if there is such a log chain failure, your restores will fail. The whole intent of restoring might not work. So that's where we brought in this intelligence, where we have a way to identify if there is any log chain failure, we automatically stop, pause, and then take a remedial full to make sure tomorrow when customer restores, there is continuity out there. So that is one more capability that we have for database workloads. That is a major plus that we have. And also we bring in encryption by default. So which means once your workloads hit the recovery services vault, by default, it's encrypted. So the data at rest, which is stored in the recovery services vault, we use Microsoft managed keys, and then we encrypt the recovery points. In case if customers want to use their own keys, we provide that capability as well. So customer managed keys and Microsoft managed keys, we support both of them.
Great. Yeah.
And we also have inbuilt capabilities, like we have deeper integrations with some DBAs are very used to using HANA Studio and HANA Cockpit. So we have deeper integration with that. So they can use Azure Backup and still do their backup and restores using those native clients as well.
Yes, right. And what I also see basically when we talk about SQL and HANA is not just the standalone, it's also those replication stuff, HSR and the always on, which means the high availability system, which is quite often what we see from a customer to have the HA, of course, which means the functionality must be there to support the HA configuration also, which is great. Yeah.
True. Yeah. And we spoke about streaming, right? So predominantly how customers use the solution is for smaller databases, say 10 to 12 terabytes, customers can use streaming backup, and anything larger, about 10 TB or 30 terabytes or 50 terabytes for that reason, they can use snapshot backup. So where we take a managed disk snapshot of your underlying storage, and we store it in the customer storage account. And we also use log backups on top of that. That's the goodness of that. So even for larger databases, we stream the log backups to the vault. And then when you're restoring, you can do point in time restores as well. That is the goodness of having the snapshot capability with point in time restore. So this is one solution which customers with larger databases, we've been seeing predominantly using that. And also we support HSR. that is another important thing that we spoke about earlier. So HSR, so the goodness about that is if there is a failure or a failover that happens, we have a capability to stream backups directly to recovery service as well. So customer does not have to keep tab on which is a new primary or old primary. So once you add your physical nodes to Azure Backup, we will start protecting those HA nodes. And then when a failover happens, we stream the backup, and log backups are also streamed, and which means it's consistent, right? Well, even after failback, we automatically take care of that.
Right.
So we have the intelligence to identify that as well.
And those snapshots are actually features which you're using, I believe, from managed disks, which means premium V1 is here. We are talking about how about V2, for example?
Very good point.
Because, yeah.
Very good point. So lately we've been seeing that a lot of customers are moving towards premium SSD V2 for both streaming backup and snapshot backup. We support V1 and V2. So that is another added advantage. So even new customers who are moving towards V2, they don't have to worry about the support. We support streaming backup and snapshot backup for V1 and V2.
Yeah.
And Goran, you mentioned about, a lot of customers, go ahead, always have an HA setup, and, Pradeep, mentioned this support. One key thing I want to emphasize here when we talk about the HSR support really is it takes away the manual task. So you can imagine in a failover scenario, you fail over, and then traditionally you have to go ahead and set up your backup. Well, not only are you going to spend that time trying to set that up, you actually need to wait for the entire full backup to happen, which takes time. So the great thing with the support for HSR is that all that becomes seamless as a single chain. So you fail over, and your backup basically just continue as if it was from the on the previous premise side. So that is very key, because that gets into some of the cost efficiency. Talked about the time efficiency, and things like that to speed up your recovery.
Absolutely, because the more you need to manage it, it's more costly, and plus you're less efficient, of course. Yeah. Nice.
So probably we can get into the security side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, the whole stack, the whole service Azure Backup comes with built-in security. There are a lot of guardrails that we have created, because security plays a very, very, very vital role in terms of safeguarding your backups, right? So first and foremost is recovery services vault by itself, which is completely air-gapped, and it sits on the Microsoft tenant. So which means any guests or external users cannot access the recovery services vault, which means they cannot access your recovery points or your backups, right? So you need to provide permissions for somebody to access that and start looking into them, or even manage those workloads. So which means completely air-gapped solution. That is a built-in security that comes by itself. And on top of that, we have vault-related security capabilities. So one such is soft delete. So soft delete plays a very, very important role. Let's say there is a malicious actor inside your organization, or let's say accidentally you delete your backups by mistake, right? So we put these backups into soft delete mode. So which means for 14 days, these backups are in soft delete mode. And you realize that, okay, by mistake, or a ransomware attacker or somebody has deleted it, you can recover those workloads, right? And we also brought in enhanced soft delete, which means you can configure, okay, by mistake, let's say 14 days, we save your workloads. We don't charge you, we don't charge customers for safeguarding your workloads for 14 days. And what happens after 14 days? So if you've not enabled enhanced soft delete, we go ahead and delete those workloads or your recovery points. And if you have configured enhance soft delete, you can configure the timeline as well, how long you want to retain those recovery points. So we will basically retain those, and then let's say you put it as 28 days. So we will delete those after 28 days. So these are some of the additional capabilities that we have, which is basically soft delete, very important capability. And the other one that we have is immutable vaults. So which means your recovery points cannot, once you enable immutable vaults, this is again a vault capability. Once you enable this, customers will not be, or users will not be able to delete their recovery points. And another good part is, let's say a typical ransomware attack happens, and there could be a scenario where they can reduce your backup policy retention period. That is one way where they can create huge impact, right?
Yeah.
So it could be that there is some insider attack, and slowly they want to basically, let's say you're protecting your workloads for 30 days. They can go ahead, and if immutable vaults are not enabled, they can obviously go ahead and modify the backup policy to reduce that to 10 days, right? Which means your backups are not there for longer period. That can also cause a lot of impact in your organization, right? So once you enable immutable vaults, we will not let users to change backup policy. They can increase the retention period. They cannot decrease the retention period. That is the goodness of having immutable vaults. And one step we have gone further, where we have introduced something called as immutable lock. Once you enable this, there is no turning back. So nobody can delete your backups. You have to wait for your backups retention period to kick in, right? So no way you cannot bring it back again. You cannot, once this is enabled, you cannot turn it off also. That is the lock capability that we already have in the product. So there are two options. Customer can just enable immutable vault, and then we can also control who can disable it. Not everybody has access to disable it. Probably you can give access to only specific people in your organization to disable that. Or there are a lot of customers who are looking for lock capability, immutable lock, where once enabled, there's no turning back. So which means you have to wait for your backups to be deleted by itself based on the retention period.
Yeah, actually, it's not just saving the database, but it's also saving the backup itself. Because if somebody delete by intention or by malicious attacks, Houston, we have a problem, right? Oh, great.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we also have support for private endpoints. So let's say customers who are like in fintech or other secure environments where they want to disable public access altogether. So they can enable private endpoint support. We support that as well. So private endpoints gets enabled between your VM and recovery services vault. So which means you're in a secure channel. So either ways, you're on Microsoft channel. Your data is within Azure. On top of that, you can have private endpoint support as well. So that is another additional capability that you get. And you also have MUA, which is multi-user authorization. You can provide additional RBAC access as to who can access, who cannot access, who can delete, and that kind of granular multi-user authorization capabilities on top of soft delete, immutable vaults, and etc. So a lot of security capability.
And I want to add that, we know the incidence of ransomware is basically increasing, is on the rise. Especially, when we talk about SAP mission critical workloads. So all the capabilities that Pradeep also mentioned, these are deliberate investment that we're making, that we'll continue to also make, to give you like a holistic, comprehensive solution to actually help protect against ransomware. So when you look at these, definitely you can choose which one you want to enable, but collectively, they give you, like Pradeep mentioned, guard rate, again, all sorts of attacks that ultimately allows you to be able to protect your critical SAP workload from ransomware.
Absolutely, yeah.
So because in your organization, let's assume that there is a ransomware attack, right? So since we are having air-gapped recovery services vault, which is sitting in Microsoft tenant, the ransomware attacker will not even have access to that, which means your backups are completely safe. On top of that, we are providing additional security capabilities as well. So which means it's completely foolproof.
Right.
And coming to one more very interesting topic, so cost optimization. So a lot of customers reach out to us, Pradeep, can you help us? How do we reduce our backup costs? So that's where we wanted to spend some time today. What are the different options that we have to optimize your cost, right? So the first one is your backup policy. The cream lies there because it depends on how you configure your backup policy. So if you're looking at long-term retention, a lot of our customers do weekly full and daily incremental backups. So that way you automatically reduce your storage cost. There are some customers who also does daily full backups, right? There could be a compliance reason or otherwise, but if you don't have it, what we truly recommend is doing a weekly full backup and then do a daily incremental backup or a differential backup.
Because this does more amount of data, so to say. Yeah.
Correct. We take only the diff, right? First, we take a full backup, and whatever the incrementals that are there, daily we just take the diff and then store it in recovery services vault. So when you restore, you don't have to worry about it. We chain them completely, and then we restore them on your target VM. So that is the goodness of having this mode of backup policy. And in case if you guys are not using GRS, so another capability that we get with GRS is we have something called as cross-region restore. So which is a low-cost DR solution that comes with backup as well. So once you enable that capability, we replicate your backups to a secondary region. So which means during a disaster or a ransomware attack, we provide one more layer of protection.
Great.
So you can have your copies in a secondary region, which is predominantly a paired region. We replicate those recovery points to a secondary region as well. And then in case that if the complete region goes down, you don't even have to wait for that. You don't even have to wait for Azure to announce that there is such a disaster happened and the whole region is not accessible, which is very less chance of happening. Even in such situations, you have your backups readily available in the secondary region. So which means...
Yeah, that's great, because I have had a customer who are doing the DR exactly asked for this feature in the past. Exactly, which makes sense. Yeah, because again, you do a DR, but however, what if something is really goes wrong with the database? You do need the restore, you need the backup as well in the DR location as well. So excellent.
Correct. We have two products. One is ASR, right? I'm sure most of the viewers know this.
Sure,
Azure Site Recovery, which is a DR specific product, right? So the one which we are talking here is CRR, which is cross-region restore. So this is a low-cost DR. So, but the replication times are a little higher. But the intent is to have your copy in a secondary region. So this is one other feature that we have. And we also introduce support for HANA compression. So which means once you enable HANA compression, this can be enabled via the backup policy itself, or when you're taking ad hoc backups. So you can enable compression on top of that. So which means straight away you're reducing 40 to 45% in your with your storage costs. Once you enable this compression, HANA automatically compresses your backups, and then we stream those compressed backups to your recovery services vault. And when you do the restore, we automatically take care of that as well. So this is one way a lot of customers have enable this, and they are basically reducing their storage costs. So this is one most important thing that I want users to try this, to reduce, in case if you have plans to optimize your costs, your backup costs predominantly, you can enable HANA compression. And the second one is reserved pricing. So where you sign up for a pre-commitment, and then automatically you get these additional discounts on top of your storage. And we also have archival storage. So which means, as I mentioned before, if you're looking at long-term retention, you can store these backups for a longer period of time, and your cost will reduce. Yeah. And the other one is snapshot-based backup. Because if you look at it, snapshot-based backup truly is first full and then forever incremental, right? So which means you will automatically save costs on that as well. If you go with snapshot-based backup, your costs are also reduced. That is another way where you can optimize your costs.
So for me, I think another way I see it is the bottom line is this: if you want to reduce to effectively reduce your cost of backup, you need to look into the storage consumption. And what we've outlined here really are areas that you can consider. Whether it is the policy, how long, how often you're keeping it. In case you need to keep something for long, like Pradeep mentioned, then you may want to consider the long-term retention and shift, the archive vault, such that you can keep, the long-term, the months, the yearly retention into, this cheaper storage, and then you can even consider that in the context of reserve storage. Because now you're going to keep some of those things for long, and you can also reserve pricing for those storage. And, compression then comes into play. If I'm going to keep something for 1 year, 6 months, I better also compress it so that, again, you're reducing your storage footprint. And ultimately, when you do that, your costs go down. And, like Pradeep mentioned, the types of storage you use also matters, right? So ultimately, whether it's LRS, GRS, all those things also ultimately have the bottom line on the cost. So together, looking at this, we do have options, many options, in fact, that you can apply collectively to reduce your costs. And we were seeing actually that happening, and people are beginning to take advantage of this, especially on the SAP workload.
So before going to the demo of ASE Backup, I would like to talk about some of the performance improvements. So I spoke about multi-streaming backup, right? So today, current speed that we support with a single channel is 420 Mbps, and we improved the backup speeds. Once you enable something called as multi-channel backup, your speeds will improve from 420 to 1 Gbps to 1.5 Gbps. So this is a great improvement in case customers who are sensitive, where they want backups to be done really quick. They can enable this, and then they should be immediately able to see their backup speeds improving. So this is one other capability that we want to let viewers know about. So we have something called as multi-channel streaming as well. So this is predominantly for streaming-based backup. These are capabilities that Backint provides, where we leverage that, and then we provide performance improvement on top of that. And we spoke about compression in detail. You get easily 40 to 45% reduction in storage consumption. Today, I want to talk about ASE Backup, and then we can go into demo.
Just let's do a quick recap. We've been talking about HANA Backup. We talked also about we doing backup for SQL Server, right? And look at the great capability where we've been investing on to, for example, we've talked about the performance improvement that we've made. We've talked about how you can reduce your cost we've talked even about the security. And when you look at even all these are actually being managed when we talk about the recovery service vault. So which means you don't have to deploy any infrastructure. We're basically doing that on your behalf. So that's the key thing. We're managing this for you. Now, you ask me, oh, well, we have HANA, and we know, Garan, as you also know, a lot of people that have HANA also have access to SAP ASE database. So what we're trying to do now is we not only want you to be able to do your backup of HANA, but along with that, we want you to be able to do other workloads, other database that you have in your SAP estate. In this case, one of the things we're doing, one of the things we just recently announced is a private preview for SAP ASE Backup. What this really means is all the great things we've talked about right now that we talk about for HANA are now being supported for SAP ASE Backup. So one thing to keep in mind here, it means that you as a customer already doing your HANA backup using Azure Backup don't need to now think about other tools to go and do your ASE that you already have along with your SAP. So now with one tool, you're able to do your backup of not only HANA, but ASE. In addition to that, you now take advantage of all this capability that comes with your recovery service growth, which is where we go ahead and store the data. We've already said is zero infrastructure, so which means we're managing it for you. It's air gap. We talked about all the security capability, air gap, modern day air gap. You can, it's also support encryption, all the soft delete, the capability we talked about. And not only that, when it comes to, restoring, we have a couple of options for restoring. You can restore to alternate location. We talked about that earlier. You can also restore to your primary location, or you restore to, as a file. And so you have all these options. And of course, let's not forget, you have all the flexibility in terms of how you retain your data, the frequency, the duration, and essentially the policy, backup policy are also available. So in other words, what we're bringing to you is all the great capability you have on HANA backup now using supported for ASE backup. And with that, I would like Pradeep to go ahead and give you a sneak peek into what it is that we're providing with ASE backup, and hopefully, you guys can have access to this and also try it and provide feedback.
Great, Tunde. So nothing like seeing a real demo, right? So we spoke so much about what are the different capabilities. So what I'll quickly do is I'll quickly showcase some of these capabilities in our vault. So we spoke about recovery services vault. So I've just created a recovery services vault, which is completely air-gapped. So this is one of your entry points. You can get in via your recovery services vault, or I spoke about ABCC, which is Azure Business Continuity Center, right? Or we also have Backup Center. These are other entry points where you can access your recovery services vaults and manage all your workloads in one pane, right? Now, if you look at it, we have multiple options. We spoke about some of the networking capabilities, like having private endpoint support. You can choose whether you want to do public access or private access. You can create your private endpoints from the recovery services vault. And if you go to properties, this is where all the vault capabilities comes in, right? So you can do your capabilities around cross subscription restore and cross region restore. And you can also do backup configuration. So some capabilities around backup configuration around cross region restore, that is something you can do. And coming to the security, this is what we spoke about, immutable vaults. So once you enable immutability, that's where we will not let users to delete or change the backup policy configuration. And this is the lock I was talking about. Once you lock this, there's no turning back. So nobody would be able to delete or delete the backups that you have. And we have multi-user authorization, we have soft delete capabilities, and by default, we enable encryption, which is the data at rest, which is sitting in your recovery services vault. It is automatically encrypted using Microsoft managed keys. And in case if you want to bring your own key, or if you are using customer managed key, you can pretty much use those capabilities as well. So this is some of the vault capabilities that you get. Again, this is irrespective of the workload. So any new workload that we start supporting, we give this built-in capabilities automatically to you, right? So now coming to the backup, right? So see the experience. Again, we try to keep the experience pretty seamless across workloads. So you can choose your workload. So I'm going to choose the new workload that we are doing private preview. So which means you are going to protect or back up your ASE VM running on ASE database running on Azure VM, right? So you can discover those VMs. In the interest of time, I've protected some of the backups, or protected some of the ASE VMs already. So this is how typically your protected VMs looks like if they are registered, and in case if they are having any issues. Let's say it could be that your VM is up and running. Let's say your database is down for some reason, right? We automatically have a way to tell user that, okay, we are trying to protect your VM, but looks like there could be some permission issues. There could be a scenario where your database is not reachable. There could be a scenario where your database is down. So multiple reasons where it could be where we are not able to protect. We let know user about that. And we also mention, okay, how many databases we were able to discover and then protect. And then customer can choose, okay, I don't want all my databases to be protected. You can just protect these two critical ones. So just they can choose and then they can get started. And then they will basically do configure backup. So this is this seamless. So first is you're discovering, you're telling what databases to protect, and that's about it. The rest all is completely taken care of.
And the discovery happens automatically. I believe
yes,
discovering of the
yes,
instances, listing it, they
absolutely
don't need to know it, what they have it, right?
Yeah. Correct. So basically the understanding is your vault and your VM should be in the same region. So automatically we discover those VMs based on the subscription, and then we will provide you all the VMs which we have discovered, and then you will choose which VM you want to protect. And then we go ahead and install the extension on that VM. We don't install anything on the database at the database level, and then we will start protecting. So this is a predominantly, once you do the configure protection flow, this is how we will start backing up, right? So before that, I'll just quickly like to showcase the backup policy as well, because this is of interest to the viewers. So you can create the backup policy. So we can choose what workload that we are looking at, and then you can choose the backup policy. So here you can clearly say how often you want to do. You want to do daily backup, weekly backup, at what time, and then how long you want to retain those backups. If you want to do a weekly backup, okay, we will do that on every Sunday, every Saturday at 2 p.m. And then how long you want to retain those backups, right? And pretty much how long, whether it's yearly, monthly, you want to retain that. And you can also choose whether you want to do a differential backup. So as I said, a lot of customers will do a weekly full and then daily differential backup. So which further reduces your backup costs. And you can also enable the log backups as well. You can enable log backups predominantly for point-in-time restore and how long you want to retain. This is the goodness of the backup policy, completely flexible. So you can create one backup policy, use it across multiple vaults as well. So that is something you can do. And let's get into the overview tab and then see some of the capabilities around backup and restore. So some of the recovery points that is already backed up. So because I didn't want to waste too much time. So if you see this workload, this recovery point, right, this database, if you click on details, that is the database that we have protected. And these are the different recovery points that we have. So you have put a schedule policy, which means we are taking daily or weekly backups, and then we will store these recovery points in the recovery services world. So you will see what are the different recovery points that are out there, and there are multiple options. If let's say if there is some ad hoc maintenance window coming up, and let's say your scheduled backup is only tomorrow, so we also provide an option to do backup now, ad hoc backup. So we can just take backup as we speak, and then automatically we will store that recovery point. And the other option is restore. This is also of interest because we try to keep the experience similar to all workloads so that there's very little learning curve for the user. We support alternate location restore. This is predominantly kind of a system cloning, or kind of if you want to have a copy of your production server, right? You can have the system refresh kind of a scenario, which is called alternate location. This is of very, very important, large importance, because a lot of customers, okay, I have this production, I just need a copy of that so that I can run some tests or some other use cases where we want the copy of the production. I cannot do that on my prod. I just want to have a system refresh, a secondary
And
copy.
this is one very important scenario, because typically in an SAP landscape, they would take prod database, restore it to the pre-prod, or maybe the dev system, anonymize the data. And in order to make it sure that, when you work with the dev system, you have the kind of prod data in order to make it realistic, right? So this is one really very, typical scenario and very important in an SAP operational landscape.
Absolutely, yeah. So once you choose ALR, which is alternate location restore, you can choose which is your target VM, right? Once you choose the target VM, you mention the instance name, and you choose the restore point, which restore point you want to restore, right? So here we will automatically show you different restore points, and then you can select which restore point, and then you can get on with your restore. And the original location is, let's say your production database is corrupted or ransomware attack. So you can restore that database on the production VM as well. So that's again pretty much similar workflow. You get to choose full or diff, or in case if you want to do point in time restore, you can do that as well. So you can select, okay, I want this point to be restored at 12:11. So you can go that granular and then choose that recovery point and then select. Automatically we will restore to that recovery point in time. And restore is files. Final one is if you want to restore the database as files, let's say you want to run some auditing or compliance requirements, you can restore as files and then store them for further process. So these are some of the capabilities that we wanted to showcase in the demo today.
Yeah, and lastly, one of the least here, I just want to quickly show, we talked about integration with Azure Center for SAP, and like we mentioned in our previous other podcasts, Azure Center for SAP allows you to deploy and manage your SAP solution, and we do that by giving you making SAP solution a top level resource on Azure. So meaning you now can create an entity, which is SAP system. We call it virtual instance for SAP, which is a virtual representation of your system, your ASCS, your app server, and also your database. So you now have a representation of your system. And with that, you can unlock a number of capabilities, one of which is the backup integration. So we talked about all the great capability that we provided in backup. Now that backup solution is now integrated into ACSS or your VIS with your virtual representation of a system. So in this case, I have a virtual representation of a system called J73, in which I can just go ahead and select configure backup. And in this system, it will identify all the application servers. It will identify the database. You don't need to do much other than select the resource vault that you have, which automatically pick the policy that Pradeep showed. You can go ahead and create another one, and you can apply the same for the database, and that is it. You just click enable, you click configure, and everything just basically start deploying on all the systems. And what it does is that it identifies all the servers for your application server, for your ASCS, and also for your database, and go ahead and enable backup for it. And when that is completed, what you have is this representation, a view of all the backups running in the instance of the SAP system. So in this particular one, we have an SAP system called CHA, which is a virtual representation of a system. There are about 4 instances of application server here, both central service and the app server, and also database running here. This is kind of running in HA, so you have two, and you basically have the view similar to what Pradeep was showing, but in the context of this particular system. So if you want, you can then drill down. For example, there's a failure here. You can drill down into the details to see, which takes you to the backup center like Pradeep was showing. So you can now see the details of those instances, and you can, for example, drill into whichever one that fails, see what completed, see when it's done, and you can always navigate back and do the same thing for your backup, see knowledge. So what we're doing now is bringing the backup center into your instance of your SAP system to give you that complete end-to-end experience, not only about supporting all the database that we've just mentioned, all the capabilities that we mentioned, including security and all that, but now we're bringing it into ACSS so that you can unlock the capabilities in the context of your system.
I mean, the point is, what I think customer can always use the UI of the backup and say, I'm backing up this database, and then, I'm going and backupping the app server VMs and the central services VM, of course. However, if they enable an ACSS, which is a highly recommended, the ACSS has the knowledge of the complete landscape and use that knowledge actually to further automate and enable onboarding of the backup of the complete landscape, right? So
exactly.
Database, central services, app servers.
Exactly. We do auto recovery, auto discovery of all those systems, and enable it for you in one click. So
this is the power of awareness, right? Which always counts. Yeah. Okay. I believe we are kind of close to an end. How about the roadmap? Maybe just quickly, a customer, or maybe quick question. If customer would love to try it, this is a ASC. This is in private preview at the moment.
Correct.
How they can do it? Where, I mean, we can put the link. Do you have some links? Do you have documentation?
Yes,
We
I'll
can
share
add them
the link. I can share the link. So this is basically an onboarding guide. So they can allow list their subscription and then start using the private preview.
Sure. I mean, we can add it always in the bottom of the videos you will share with us. No problem. And I mean, customer always say, how about the future? How about the roadmap? What are you cooking what's in the kitchen, to come?
Yeah. So we are investing a lot in databases, especially HANA databases. So we are working on bringing in support for scale out. So that is one gap today. So in terms of distributed deployments, we don't support that today. It's under works. So we will start soon start supporting scale out with HSR as well. So that is one other feature that we will start supporting on Azure Backup.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, we've shown you the ASE Backup. I think the plan is also to continue to extend that to all the databases supported for SAP workloads. See this as a basically continuation or expansion to all the other workload. And, as Pradeep mentioned, we have those capabilities that once we add those new workload or database, they basically just take, or you get all those capabilities for free,
Yeah, this is great because typically, I mean, when I think we talk a lot about the features, which is important, and there are, I mean, huge amount, just out of the box feature which the customer have. But also we always, I mean, I always have a feeling customer forget that these are the cloud services. Typically they would compare it, I have an on-premise backup and here an Azure backup. However, yes, features are important, no doubt. We need them. However, in the on-premise world, you need to order the server or servers, you need the operating system, you need to install the backup software, you need to think about backing up the backup software. How about the DR? You need to think about the high availability of the backup software, because if it's down, I mean, you can't back it up, you have a problem. And all this come out of the box as a cloud service, meaning you don't have to do anything, so to say, you're just using it. And that's a really, I always want to stress the value of the cloud services, and these kind of story, which as Tunde was also, and both of you were mentioning, it's reducing the cost. It's you're not thinking about it, but it is reducing the cost. If you need to manage it, it just drowns your man hours, which is the cost on the end as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Great. So I believe strongly, as you're mentioning, that also new support for other databases will be coming, a new feature. So I'm pretty sure, and I hope we will have you back again, at a certain point of time. So thanks a lot. Really great story. I'm also impressed, also some realized in the meantime some new stuff I didn't know it, So thanks for the sharing, and hope to see you during the time again, to keep again with the good stories and new features and new updates. Thank you, guys.
Definitely. We'd love to come back, talk about all the great things we'll be adding in the coming months, and I just want to end with this. We are committed to continue investing, especially in the SAP workload, and our mission really, at the end of the day, really is this: it's a mission critical workload, and we need to do whatever we can to not only protect it, but also make it available when needed.
Absolutely.
And
yes,
that is what we are going to continue to drive at. So we hope to be back here to continue tell you more about how we will continue to drive in achieving that mission.
Great. Super.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
On your
Thank you
podcast.
for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Have a great night and day. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.